All right, guys, we got to talk about this. This is something that really caught my eye, and I'm curious what you all think of it. So Mind War is the name of this outlet by a guy named Jim Stewartson, and he oftentimes says things that pique my interest that, I have to look into. So what he says is there's already a tremendous amount of evidence that Trump is planning on declaring martial law on 4/20, April 20th. Now, he would do that via basically the Insurrection Act, which, remember, he tried to invoke the last time he was in office, but he was surrounded by people who are not insane, and they were like, we're not deploying, because the Insurrection Act would let you deploy the U.S. military in our own streets against our own people, right? It's martial law. It's what it is. And they said, we're not doing that. He tried to do it over George Floyd protests, and he was basically blocked by his generals, right? Thank God that he blocked him. But now, he's got all the sycophants around him, and nobody's going to tell him no. Nobody. All right, ready? Let's go into the evidence. In this deeply alarming opinion piece in the San Francisco Chronicle, Brett Wagner, who served as a professor of national security decision-making for the U.S. Naval War College, raises the specter of Trump invoking the Insurrection Act and martial law. So this is a San Francisco Chronicle article, and the title is Trump preparing to invoke the Insurrection Act? Signs are pointing that way. A joint Department of Defense and Homeland Security report will soon recommend whether or not to invoke the Insurrection Act over illegal migration. So this guy wrote an article on this topic. Ready? In his day one fusillade of executive orders, Donald Trump signed declaring a national emergency at the southern border of the United States. This includes the following clause dictating that Trump's designated supplicants, Kristi Noem at DHS, and abusive crusader Pete Hegseth, submit a report with recommendations about whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. So a day one executive order he signed said the following. You ready? Within 90 days of the date of this proclamation, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall submit a joint report to the President about the conditions at the southern border of the United States and any recommendations regarding additional actions that may be necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border, including whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. So he signed an executive order on day one saying, within 90 days, I want this report, and you guys are going to recommend do the Insurrection Act or don't do the Insurrection Act. Now remember, Kristi Noem and Pete Hegseth are some of the biggest psychos in the administration and some of the biggest sycophants in the administration. And likely what they're doing with this report is, what do we think Trump wants to hear? What do we think he wants us to say? And that's what they're going to put in the report. On Wednesday, and I can't believe I'm saying this with a straight face, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard made a big show of landing at the border of Mexico, which is a pretty remarkable thing all by itself. Why would people in charge of our national defense be meeting there? The plan, as I've reported now for months, is to create a North American empire from Greenland to Colombia. Trump's tariffs and horrific abuse of America's neighbors, the belittling of Trudeau, the saber-rattling at Mexico, Greenland, and Panama, are all pretext. And so he's talked about this before in detail. There was this ideology called technocracy, which basically started, I believe, in the 1930s. And the idea was politics is too messy. Democracy is too messy. Politicians are too messy. What we basically need is to be led by technicians and engineers and like scientists, and they make all the decisions. And they came up with this idea called the technate of America. And the technate of America, ready for this? This is the scary part. The technate of America stretches from Greenland down through Canada, down through the U.S., and it goes all the way to, I believe, Colombia. Almost all of those places Trump has been warmongering with. Panama, Greenland, Canada. So it looks like he actually is laying the groundwork to try to create the technate of America. Now, to make it even scarier, you have the grandfather of Elon Musk was a Nazi. He was interested in and believed in the technate of America, right? And it looks like it may have been the case. Elon was named after some character in some Nazi sci-fi book named Elon, right? And it looks like he may have learned either from his dad or his grandfather about this idea, which that guy deeply believed in, creating the technate of America. And now, of course, he's the shadow president and the co-president. And it looks like they're laying the groundwork to try to create the technate of America. Jesus Christ. All right, we're not done. Ready? Trump has effectively decapitated the military leadership, including replacing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a 4-star general who is black, with a 3-star MAGA TV personality with the nickname Raisin Cane. Trump fired all the JAGs, the people responsible for ensuring that the military stayed within the law, and has Hegseth running around doing things like canceling the plane that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima because it's called the Enola Gay. As Mike Flynn pointed out on December 17, 2020, martial law is a tactic well within their consideration. The Insurrection Act was repeatedly invoked in the lead up to January 6th as a potential way to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. Trump's lawyers got in the way the way last time because they feared the incoming administration. This time, they will have no reason to fear at all. To get a sense of how far afield we are, here is federal judge Beryl Howell explaining the very basics of the Constitution, as if to a recalcitrant second grader to Donald Trump after he illegally fired the head of the National Labor Relations Board. And then it goes on to give that quote. I note that 3 months after January 20th, 2025, when the executive order to determine whether to invoke the Insurrection Act was signed, is 4/20/25, so April 20th, 2025. 4/20 is, as noted in an SEC filing, a part of marijuana culture and a favorite meme of Elon Musk. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of examples of this. However, 4/20 is also Hitler's birthday, and National Socialist symbolism, as I've extensively reported, is very important to Elon Musk, hence the multiple Zig Heils. As a sign of the potential actions of the Trump regime, given both its ferocity on one hand and its increasingly ineffectiveness on the other hand, here's the chief proponent of American National Socialism, aka the Dark Enlightenment, Curtis Yarvin, yesterday, practically begging for new and unprecedented abuses of the Richter scale, or the Trump regime will start to wither and eventually dissipate. And there you have his quote. If anyone thinks this regime would not consider invoking martial law on Hitler's birthday, you really got to reframe your thinking. The Nazis snuck in the back door and took over. We either squeeze them out or die regretting we didn't. Musk's Tesla stock is tanking. His rockets are exploding on a regular basis. He's deeply unpopular, but this will only make him more desperate. Head on a swivel, friends. In the meantime, enjoy the fireworks. And then he just shows Elon's rocket blowing up. So let's review. What are we talking about here? We are talking about Trump signing an executive order on day one, which says, hey, within 90 days, give me a report on whether or not to invoke the Insurrection Act at the southern border, right? So it would be deploying the military in the United States nominally over the southern border, right? Kristi Noem and Pete Hegseth are doing the reports. They are total yes men. They are total sycophants. They will put in that report whatever they think Donald Trump wants to hear, or Trump might even just outright tell them, put in the report to invoke the Insurrection Act. Then you also have this article in the San Francisco Chronicle, another person saying, yeah, I think it's very likely he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. 90 days from when he signed that executive order is 4/20, which also has the added symbolism of the things we just discussed, right? So, I don't know, man. I'm hoping it's not true, right? I'm hoping it's not true. But, Crystal made this point to me. Have you ever known Donald Trump? Let's say they release the report and they say, yeah, we think you should invoke the Insurrection Act over the border, right? Have you ever known Donald Trump to be like, I know you want to give me extra power, but I'm going to go ahead and pass on that right now, dog. All he cares about is money, power, and control. All he cares about. And so it might happen. And then, of course, what'll end up happening if he invokes martial law on April 20th is that will be expanded out. So the Insurrection Act will be expanded out. It'll be nominally over the border, right? But then as time goes by, let's say you have huge protests in the streets fighting back against Trump, as we should. He'll just declare those protests illegal. He'll say, I already invoked the Insurrection Act. You guys know that we're at war at the border. You go out and protest. That's illegal activity. We're arresting you for protesting. I don't know if it's going to happen. I want to be clear. I don't know if it's going to happen. But there's enough evidence here to have the conversation. Do you think he's going to do it or not? I'll tell you this much. I'm worried about it. All right, guys. That's the show, y'all. Love y'all very much. Sorry to end on such a dour note, but everybody do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. That helps out big time. Click that like button as well. That means a lot. 2, thank you to everybody who supports this show on Patreon. Literally could not do it without you. And remember, tune in to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends this week. We have Zoran's coming on. Everybody's favorite New York City mayoral candidate. All right, I love you guys. I'll see you there. Peace. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.